Good morning. Hi there. Welcome to Legend Jewelers. I'm Mark.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. What brings you in today?
Well, I didn't realize you had such a beautiful jewelry store down here.
Yeah.
But I specifically was inquiring about the Miss Hattie's Bordello Museum.
The Bordello Museum.
Okay, well, I don't see any signs of that down here.
Well, it's something that's been kept kind of, on a smaller scale because it is an older museum. We can only kind of cope with so many people, but it's got such an interesting history. That's what makes it so unusual. And the building was built right after the turn of the century, and we discovered when we bought the building in the 1900s that oh my goodness, upstairs was a bordello for 50 years. Others had done research on it. But it's very interesting. It's like stepping back in time 100 years and grandma's or great-grandma's help.
Yes, yes. Okay. So how did it get established, do you think, in the beginning?
We're pretty sure, well, the building was built right around the turn of the century, and a young couple, very young, I mean, we believe she was 18, 20 years old, he was a couple of years older, that at the time, they got a divorce, and I mean that was pretty unheard of at the time. But in the settlement, she was given the upstairs of the building, and he was given the downstairs. The story, as it related to us, is that he pretty much left town. And a woman in the time wasn't a whole lot of options. You were the daughter of somebody or the wife of somebody. So making a living involved cleaning, maybe doing simple accounting for businesses and whatnot, and she found that in tough times deserved some measure, and ended up literally being in that business, the Bordello business, and she was a very, very sharp businesswoman. It stayed open for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 50 years.
Wow.
Cool. Closed down in 1952. So it's a combination between, I think, with the jewelry store and the museum upstairs. It kind of came with the building when I bought it. But that's what makes it unique, and we're in a historical area, the downtown of San Angelo, and a lot of the buildings are the original buildings. We were lucky enough back 20 years ago to have a man who went from pretty much building to building and just did what was necessary to seal the buildings up so that didn't continue to decline. And this building's a very good example with the original press tin. Every bit of it original from 1902 in that time frame. And it had been taken care of over the many years. This was a saloon. It was probably one of the most notorious things that it ever was. But the main thing is over the years, San Angelo has been very good about taking care of their historical buildings. And this is a good example. And to be able to discover the history that was upstairs in the form of a bordello just makes it that much better.
All right, well, I presume we've got to find some place to get upstairs.
Would you guys like to let's take a trot upstairs and go take a look at Miss Hattie's?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. We really are fortunate that so many of these buildings are in such good shape. And everybody helps promote the Bordello Museum. Come on in. So, as I said, this was, I would call it like maybe the finest business establishment of its kind west of the Colorado River. In Texas, through the many decades of knowing about the cat houses, if you will, that are in, or were in LaGrange, ones like this was really in its heyday back in the 20s and the 30s. Is evident and reflective in what the place looks like. We don't know exactly what was where, in the time frame.
Yes.
That's always a matter of interpretation for somebody who comes along and you know that the history existed. But before I bought the building, everything was all piled up in the back two bedrooms, and the only real guiding light there was to go on was somebody who had been up here during the time that it was open. Excuse me. So that's been a guiding light up until probably about 10 years ago. And now we're at the point where a lot of these guys have passed away.
Yeah.
And they're just not here with us anymore.
Right.
We have a living room, and this was a gentleman's club of sorts in that there were certainly locals and rancher guys who would. This was a social place. Miss Hattie would cater and provide dinners. Guys would have meetings up here. There was a lot of business actually transpired. Excuse me. One of the professors at Angelo State University once told me, he said, the movement of mankind over the whole entire earth, if the guys came through on Thursday, the ladies came through on Friday. And that's just the migration of humans. The fact that this existed, and I wouldn't say so much was allowed to exist as maybe as it was tolerated to exist for the 50 years. Miss Hattie herself did a tremendous number of great things for the community. For a lot of women, provided health care,
Yes.
early education for kids, made sure that the girls went to church. Look, those are good things. And at the time, guys, this was pre any women's suffrage or voting rights or any of that. So
Yeah.
she really did a lot of stuff, good things for women for the
Yes.
time.
I see.
So this was just a kind of a gathering spot for as a living room. There was a gentleman who worked for Miss Hattie named Elmo, and Elmo handled most of the physical needs within the property itself, and that is the maintenance of the floors and the furniture, things that any kind of a business is going to need. And actually, he was admired unto himself in the community. So as we represent it here, it's interpretative, I guess you could say. But we have a dining room. There's an old oversized clawfoot bathtub in the bathroom. And this would have been one of the earliest indoor bathrooms in San Angelo.
Wow.
And one of the first buildings to have indoor water. Each of the rooms features a different personality from the standpoint of the girls. We know for a fact that they existed because there's just so many different guys that have related stories to us.
Okay. And I bet on a regular tour, we're kind of doing a brief or an abbreviated
Yeah, the normal
tour
tours,
here.
20 minutes or so.
I bet you have had access to tons of stories that you would tell during
Yes.
a normal tour.
A number of years ago, I had an older gentleman on a Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. We don't do tours until the afternoon. I just want to go upstairs and just take a look. He was real emphatic about it. His wife was with him, but she was out on the sidewalk. There's a little planter box out there. I just
Wow.
need to make a walk through. Now, at this point, his wife is not a happy camper sitting on that planter box outside there.
Yeah.
He comes up here, and the first thing he does is he rounds around the top of the steering wheel. The banister is right there. He looks into this living room here, and he sees the couch that we have right here.
Yes.
And he just kind of glances up at me, and he says, "That wasn't there." Okay.
So he had been
So
here
he
before.
Was only in here about 10 or 15 minutes. He'd make a grunt here and there. He wouldn't really, I'd ask him questions, but he really wouldn't talk to me. But yes, there's no doubt in my mind he had been up here. And,
Yeah, interesting.
and it was a good memory. I had no idea how long ago, but that kind of a scenario is a
Yes.
story of like other stories I've heard.
If it closed down in 52, 54, something like that, there is a possibility there could still be some of the young ladies within the community. And has any attempt been made to locate them to get their stories?
There was kind of a cursory attempt in that respect, in that there was a local writer here who had been writing for Harlequin romance for enough to have 8 or 10 different novels that he'd already come out with. But this specific one was targeted towards a storyline involving Miss Hattie.
Okay.
And so his name is Ken Casper, and Ken had done research in that. And actually it was him and that professor at the college at Angelo State University who, given the environment, the 19-teens, 20s, and 30s, society was this. We were, steaming in, at least in the 1920s, into World War I and everything that went with that. And the feeling was that young women were in a situation that had been divorced. Maybe the family had been lost. but really from the standpoint of working, either they were a cook, they cleaned, but really otherwise you were the daughter of somebody or you were the wife of somebody.
Yes.
And so in many cases this might have just been a temporary job. The pay was very hard for a woman, was very hard to pass up. You know, $2 for a girl's favors for an evening. $2 at that time in say 1915 would board your horse, get you a steak dinner, a hot bath, and a hotel room.
Yes.
That was expensive. There were two men in their 80s. One just passed away recently, and the care center was paid for by production of oil and gas from out west of town here.
Okay.
And that particular property came from these boys' grandmother, who would have been Miss Hattie. And I mean, there's a direct relation as far as the family. Family never wanted to talk too much about it.
Sure.
You know, it was a different world then.
Right.
And the boys come from a generation where that's just not something you really talk about.
Yes.
And that is past history. We're not glorifying what it's here. It's a history.
Yes.
It existed. It's what
Yes.
it was. We presented it in a very balanced way, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, in no form or fashion. And everybody around this area is very familiar with the Miss Hattie's building. This building is a whole.
Right.
Even the restaurant down the way named after
Yes.
it. And what it represented. And if you were to ask people if anything, it has to do with what Miss Hattie did for other women in the community.
Right.
Hands above
And I presume there
anything.
were other bordellos here
Yeah.
in San Angelo as well.
Sure.
And they may not have been nearly as ethical as Miss Hattie was.
This would have been
so.
an absolute top of the line, first class
Yes.
gentleman's club at the
Yes.
time.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, there's one thing I would like to do. This young lady here,
Hey, let me turn her around.
She is actually noticeable looking through the window from
Well,
the
that's
street.
why we did this.
It's a little bit hard to make out because the window's a little bit dirty and
Right.
the angle of the sun.
Especially in the morning.
Yes. There
So
we go.
we
Beautiful outfit.
wanted to add something that would give a touch from outside. I get several comments and we had a message on the answering machine in the jewelry store one morning, and it was a couple that were across the street at Marshall Pike. I think she lost her footing here.
Uh-oh.
And they were looking across the street. They don't live here. They were visiting, and noticed her in the window. Came over the next morning because we'd listened to the message. Told us who they were, and they ended up doing the tour. And they thought that, you know, that was a pretty nondescript and only if you looked kind of a way of knowing that this museum was even up here. Because there's really, other than a little small sign on the door, there's not much.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like some of the artwork in here, you can tell this is sort of a high-class operation here in this painting or print.
Come on, girl.
Look at this beautiful lamp.
Yeah, I have no idea where a lot of this came from. I mean, a lot of it was here when I bought the building.
Wow.
There's a lady that's just amazing when it comes to decor and things of that sort.
Yes.
Next door, her name is Joyce Wilde, and Joyce did a lot of the decorations as far as a lot of the heavier fabrics and the photos and whatnot, just to reflect a comfortable atmosphere. There's no doubt. Dinners were catered here. There's a small kitchen with a couple of, it's got like a small cook plate on it.
Okay, yeah, I was going to suggest that we take a quick walkthrough and you explain the layout, because we really want people to come and see things for themselves too.
You bet.
As
But
well
you
as
know,
your-
being a small kitchen such as it is, she catered the food most of the time, and as we affectionately say, the girls weren't known for cooking.
Yes, I can imagine so.
This is an example of what we meant when we said indoor water. I mean, quite literally,
Oh, wow.
the very first it would have been considered indoor water.
Yeah.
The bathroom was built to be a bathroom, and the clawfoot tub is definitely original from the time.
Wow.
And the linoleum flooring is from the 1930s.
I see.
That's some pretty used stuff by this point right here.
And it's
in
obvious.
each one of the rooms, there's Miss Blue, there's Miss Rosie, Miss Goldie, and kind of short stories about them and who they were. This is actually Miss Hattie's office. We do not know what this looked like originally because when in the 1940s and through the 50s, this was a sporting goods store downstairs, and all they used the upstairs part for was for storage.
Yeah.
So there was a huge evaporative cooler in here, and the moisture that went with it had messed up the press tin. So the room had to be gutted, pretty much scraped,
Yeah.
the plaster clean, and completely
Yeah.
redo it. So this is kind of an interpretation of Miss Hattie's office.
And this is right at the head of the stairs where
That's
we
right.
came up, so it's a nice place to greet your clients as well.
This would have been Miss Hattie's parlor. There wasn't many times maybe that Miss Hattie had different forms of persuasion, you might say,
Sure.
be it in politics or personal lives.
Yeah.
And she kept a real close leash on the girls from the standpoint of no drinking on the job, absolutely not tolerated, no drugs. She made sure that the girls had medical if needed.
Yes.
This room right here was Miss Mabel's, and actually this is one of the girls that ultimately she ended up marrying a gentleman from New Mexico, and they moved there. And again, this is one of these things we wouldn't have known. And shoot, probably 20 years ago, this girl comes in. She's doing family research, and the research has brought her to here. So this was real significant to her. You have no control over the life that grandma or grandaunt or anybody else lived.
Yeah.
Actually, she was very intrigued by it, and the fact that she was a girl in one of the houses and then ends up marrying one of the guys, and here's a granddaughter tracking her down is just phenomenal. And actually, the granddaughter thought that, given the times, it's one of those things where I've never walked in those shoes.
Right.
So we have a gambling room.
Oh, okay.
This was original to the time. There's an original old casket. The casket represents the mannequin that's in it is for Elmo, the guy who helped Miss Hattie maintain the property.
Okay. Can't quite get enough lighting to see the occupant there.
Right. And then it kind of goes on. This is Miss Kitty's room. And each of the girls had their own traits. I mean,
Sure.
one might have had the capability to play a guitar. Another one was the top of the line seamstress. The one thing is Miss Hattie did, and this is how I think it really blended in as far as teaching women is concerned, was how to read. Because at the time, I mean, if you would have made it past third, fourth grade, would have been a fairly good education through the 19 teens. And so the two things were that the girls could read and they were up on current events, because that way they could carry on a conversation with the folks that came and visited the place.
Sure.
Two of the
Loving these
rooms-
lamps. Do you think that there would originally have been kerosene lamps?
Yes, because there wouldn't have been, the building wasn't built with electricity.
Yeah.
In fact, the electrical that I added is all conduit that's up
Is
on the ceiling,
exposed.
and then we just painted it gold to
Yeah.
blend in
Yeah.
with it. This was Miss Rosie. We do know a little bit more about Miss Rosie than we do the other girls, in that she was fairly known in the community. Miss Hattie had a bit more patience, I suppose, with Miss Rosie, in that sometimes she would leave. She would disappear, maybe is a better word for it, and then she might be gone a month or so and come back again. But there was a special relationship between her and Miss Hattie.
I see.
And I really do believe that the family has even used the name Miss Rosie before. So, and then this right here, we can actually walk through this part real quick.
Okay.
So this is the parlor, her own personal parlor, to Miss Goldie.
Okay.
Miss Goldie was a prize attraction.
That's what
As
I
I
was
said,
just fixing to say. If
She
she's got
charged $2 for her favors. She was very well liked in the community. Having certainly never met these people, through so many other people who have related stories is how Miss Goldie in particular stayed up until literally the day this place closed.
Yeah.
At the end of World War II, boy, oh boy, the world was different. You know, all the servicemen coming back home. And Miss Hattie actually did a very good business. So we feel like as the girls are represented, we do it in a very positive way, not knowing really what their individual circumstances were. What we do know is their involvement in the community.
Yeah.
And Miss Hattie making sure their involvement in the community, went to church on Sundays.
Yeah.
It's what she believed. What she believed.
Makes me think there's a likelihood that there could actually be some photographs around that haven't even been discovered yet.
That's true. That's true. You know, just in the last year or so, there were some photographs discovered at the Railroad Museum that I had never seen before. And I've been downtown for 47 years.
Wow.
So I'm really into history, involved in Fort Concho. And to find old photographs, those are the memory of the world. Without those photographs,
exactly,
that's the one thing that somebody can look at. And without those photographs, it's what was the old story? It's the story is always the one that goes on in history is told by the last one alive to tell the story.
Believe it or not, when people are telling about their life stories, not all of them are like 100% true.
Yeah, you know, I had one of the family members associated with us in the store 6-7 years ago, and asked him a few questions. Yeah, sure. What do you want to know? And I could tell within about 10 or 15 minutes, he had been given little small sniglets of stories having to do with great grandma and grandma in ways that, not that it was positive or negative, it was just simply the way that was presented to them as kids and what they remembered.
Yeah.
And even the building itself and what it looks like.
Yes.
So it's, yeah, absolutely. Here, I'll go out this door right here. And that's pretty much it. This was one of the girls, this was Miss Rosie's parlor. Now it's a kitchen that we converted because we have parties up here every once in a while.
Yes.
We do have one party. We haven't done it, well, for 2-3 years now because of COVID and all that. And we call it the Lantern Party. We have to limit it to about 40 people. In order to be allowed to attend, we're picky, you have to dress 1920s.
Oh.
So this party's been going on and off for 15 years or so. We have a banker, we have law enforcement, we have an undertaker, all the girls, the flappers, the madams of the community, golfer. And what we do at about 10 o'clock at night is, as you can tell, the lanterns that are down the hallway, and there's a lantern in each one of the rooms. I'll go through and I light up the lanterns. It's about 10 o'clock at night. And then we go and we turn the lights off. And eyes gotta adjust, but it's amazing.
Yes.
10, 15 minutes later, your eyes adjust and you can see. And to me personally, it's as close as you could ever get to stepping back and stepping into that time.
Yes.
And experiencing it.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
It's, yeah. And I just got a little nudge on that yesterday from a friend, and you know, when are we going to bring back this lantern party? So,
yeah, with this Chinese bug stuff starting to disappear,
yes.
Hopefully, altogether, well, I'm glad for things to start getting normal again. Now, let's be sure and mention that you have a website, and
yes,
I will add a link to that website.
Absolutely. There's www.misshattiesbordello.com, or any combination will bring you to it. And then for the jewelry stores, legendjewelers.com. And then even through Legend Jewelers, you can click on to the museum as well.
Oh, okay.
Our hours do change depending on the season. Like right now, because more and more people are going to start hitting the road here pretty soon. Currently, it's 2 and 4 o'clock. I think starting next week, maybe the week after, we'll go back to our regular schedule on, especially Friday and Saturday, because we get so much traffic on that, is 1, 2, 3, and 4. But you check Facebook or check the website.
Okay.
And it's always, Facebook especially, is going to be up to the minute current on that.
Okay, excellent. And you do charge a fee for
yes, we do.
groups
It's
and
$6 a
individuals?
person.
Yes, sir.
This museum has never made 10 cents. From the standpoint of everything from maintaining the air conditioner to the plaster to the roof to the furnishings, We've always looked at it that if the fees that we charge for the tours covered the utilities and the taxes, I felt like that was, that was beneficial.
Yeah.
The one thing I learned from Mr. Gunner, Ken Gunner, who took such an interest in these old buildings and preserving them, this building wouldn't exist if it weren't for him, is that, as long as you maintain these old buildings, it's never a real big job. But it's when you ignore the little things, 5 years later is a big job.
Right.
So I believe in the first theory. I think that as long as we jump on things, be it plaster, screens on the doors, those little things is what keeps the building up.
Yes.
And evidently, since we make our living from the jewelry store downstairs, and the museum is just part of the history of it, I feel it's my responsibility to keep the whole package up.
Yes.
Whether it's a leg on a chair or one of our showcases downstairs. We only limit the tours to 15 people per tour, and day to day it varies on what the hours of the tours are. The reason is that what comes absolutely number one and first is the integrity of the building and keeping that up.
Yes.
Because there won't be any museum and there won't be any tours if the building falls down.
Well, I thank you especially for helping to preserve this history.
I take it as a challenge. I actually enjoy it. I think that this is one of these things, and in old neighborhoods are a really good example. You go to the bigger cities, and they all have those older neighborhoods.
Yes.
And you go in those old grand 2- and 3-story houses.
Yeah.
And you look across what used to be a full neighborhood, and there's maybe 8 houses left.
Right.
Because the others have been torn down over time.
Yes.
And downtown San Angelo has been real strong in their historical preservation.
Yeah, that's
Or
great.
sometimes I refer to it as their hysterical preservation.
Yes.
Because sometimes what's involved in redoing these old buildings gets challenging and absurd, and you find a balance and you keep on forging and you do it to where other people can come in and enjoy them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fully understandable.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else you would like to add?
No, I think come and visit us. The tour's $6 a person. Check the website or Facebook. And
you are listed on Google Maps as well.
Yeah, we're on all the different ones. You can find us. You can GPS us, bring you right to the.
And I will add links to all those resources in the description below this video.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.